Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Wilbert Mkori. Tonight, I would like to talk about this video, the issue of SADC. Asking Zimbabwe to accept that the August elections were not free, fair, and credible. This is an issue that some people have been saying that SADC was never going to sweep the SADC report condemning the elections under the carpet. And yet, up to now, we've not seen anything. But according to this Mbira TV report, they are now saying that the pressure is being piled on Mnangagwa to meet Chamisa and resolve the issue. So the issue is not dead. Let's just listen quickly what the video is saying. I just started, I will not play the whole thing.
Atoravo re-African National Congress ANC rikundwe pasarudzo nebato re-EFF rinotungamirirwa nava Julius Malema vekunyika yeSouth Africa. Ndonyaya iripo mhuri yeZimbabwe kuti iko zvinozvi vasiri Ramaphosa havachaite zvavakaita pakutanga nekuti vave kufira hiti kunyika kwavo zvizvarwa zvenyika yeSouth Africa kunyanya vechidiki vari kunzi musi wakavhurwa chirongwa chekunyoresa kuvhota mamiliyonzi nemamiliyonzi evechidiki vakaenda kundonyoresa kuvhota. Izvo zvakonzera kuti vavhunduke kuti vechidiki vari kuvarongera zvipi vaRamaphosa nebato ravo re-ANC. Ndonyaya iripo panapa mhuri yeZimbabwe kuti ma-elders vari kutaura ivo kuti musi wa18 December ndipo panofanirwa kuti vaMnangagwa navaChamisa vaonane kuDar es Salaam, guta guru reTanzania, mushure mekunge vakundikana kuonana pakutanga musi wa17 November. Panapa ndonyaya yatanga takakubatirai, asi pane mashoko ambotenderera nhasi, pane vhidhiyo ratenderedzwa nhasi. Hatinaziva kuti musangano uyu wakaitwa kupi uye rini, asi vhidhiyo iroro ratenderedzwa zvakanyanya nhasi, panoonekwa panonzwika Vice President Chiwenga vachitaura mashoko ekuti veruzhinji munyika yeZimbabwe vanofanirwa kusiyana nemashoko kana kuti kuteerera zvakanyanya mashoko ari kutaurwa kana kuti kutenderedzwa pasocial media ekutaura kuti vaMnangagwa kana kuti vaNelson Chamisa vari kuda kutaurirana navaMnangagwa kuti vaumbe hurumende yomubatanidzwa. Zvavati chiwengwa izvozvo hazvigoneke kuitika kuti muve nehurumende yemubatanidzwa. VP Chiwenga vazviramba vakati hakuna zvakadaro, asi mashoko aripo ndiwo ari kutaura kuti pari kunzi panofanirwa kunge paine interim government yakasanobata matomu pachizomirirwa kuitwa sarudzo patsva munyika. Sarudzo dziri kunzi dzinofanirwa kunge dzichidzokorodzwa gore rinouya, ndokunge kana nhaurirano dziri kuda kutungamirirwa nemaSADC elders dzabudirira. Sarudzo dzinofanirwa kudzokorodzwa before June next year. Ndo mashoko aripo mhuri yeZimbabwe. Ndo nyaya iri kubva kuSADC Secretariat, kusangano rinoona nezvenyika dzemu Southern African Development Community dzekuSADC, vakati sarudzo dzinofanirwa kudzokorodzwa munyika yeZimbabwe. Ameno kuti munozviona sei mhuri yeZimbabwe nyaya iyoyi? Zvinobudirira here kana kuti SADC iri kuramba ichingotaura kana kuti haisi kukwanisa kuita zvainofanirwa kunge ichiita, nekuti zviri pachena kuti sarudzo dzakashoropodzwa nevakaongorora sarudzo idzi kusanganisira African Union kanova kekutanga kushoropodza sarudzo dzakaitwa muZimbabwe, European Union ikashoropodza zvimwe chete izvo. sarudzo kuti hadzina kuitwa zvakanaka. Amen. Shandisai comment section muchitiudza mufungiro wenyu nemuonero wenyu maererano nenyaya yataunza mudariro iyi. Musakanganwewo zvekare vadiwa vatariri kurikomenda channel yeMbire TV kune vasati vaiziva nekusheyawo mavideos iwaya.
I urge us all to forget about some divisive opposition parties who continue to daydream about an inclusive government. That will not happen here. There is no scope for that in Zimbabwe as Zanu PF has won the harmonized elections and formed a government according to our laws. Our president's focus is now on production, productivity, and development.
Okay, stop there. The issue that the clip is raising there is that one of the significant changes is that South Africa, which had supported the Zanu PF regime all along and wanted it to be given granted legitimacy regardless of the fact that the election process was ruled as flawed and illegal by the African Union, the regional body, SADC, and even Zimbabwe's own Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, tasked to observe the elections. One of the problems we have had, and I would like to reiterate here, is that even if SADC had wanted to act on that report and refused to grant Zanu PF political legitimacy, one has to ask, what next? Yesterday, I covered the issue of the GNU, and in it I was discussing what Professor Atham Tambara said in the extract of his book, admitting that the MDC failed to implement even one meaningful reform. I saluted him for that because he is one of the few MDC leaders in that GNU who have admitted that they failed. To be quite honest, the majority of them do not even see it. So even if we form another transition authority, another GNU, call it what you like, the question will still remain, what will it accomplish? If the opposition do not understand, and I think that is at the heart of it, they do not understand the importance of reforms. In fact, most of them, they don't even know what those reforms are, much less how they are to be implemented. And to make things worse, the Zimbabwe electorate, even the intelligentsia, supposedly the cream de la cream of the country, most of them, even to this day, do not understand what the reforms are. And the few who do have chosen to be silent. Zimbabwe's political system is so corrosive that speaking even what you consider to be the truth with the backing evidence, you do it at your own risk. Before independence, criticizing Zanu PF was a serious issue. You risked being lynched by the crowd. Such was the reference given to Zanu PF. Ever since, that blind loyalty has shifted to Chamisa, the opposition. Some people swear that it is Zimbabwe's best foot forward. How can it be the Zimbabwe's best foot forward when they had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms and they failed to implement even one token reform? This meeting that this video clip was talking about, that SADC is now putting Zanu PF under pressure that the meeting must take place by the 18th of December. That's in about 2 weeks' time. Even if it was to take place, we have got to ask ourselves, to what end and purpose? If, according to the video, if the purpose is to form an interim government to arrange for fresh elections by June next year, one has got to ask, what would have changed by June next year? What would have changed? Yes, we can force SADC to have election observers who are no more than just election observers. They play a more active role. So that between now and June next year, they will coerce the system to implement some reforms that will allow some level of free, fair, and credible election to take place. But knowing the opposition, as we do, even if Chamisa was to get into power, which is one of the things he's dying to do, will he implement any meaningful reforms so that the next election, whenever that's going to be, are finally free, fair, and credible? The answer is no. I don't think SADC would want to be involved more than just supervising the June elections. If MDC failed to implement even one token reform during the 2008 to 2013 GNU, in which SADC was the guarantor of the global political agreement that gave birth to the GNU, and SADC continued throughout the GNU to play a very active role, they were nagging MDC leaders to implement reforms. But as we know, to no avail. Not even one meaningful reform was implemented because MDC leaders were bribed by Zanu PF. Mugabe dangled before them the trappings of high office, the limousines, the generous salary and allowances, and for Changira himself, the US $4 million mansion in Highlands. And in return, the MDC leaders forgot about the reforms. One of the SADC diplomats in Zimbabwe in 2013, after they rigged the elections, told the Independent newspaper that MDC leaders were busy enjoying the trappings of power during the GNU. They forgot why they were in the GNU. And of course, he was right. We can have another GNU, but to what end and purpose? It's these false starts that is not going to help the country. But if you ask me, would I rather take that offer from SADC, if this is truly, if it is true that they're urging it, I would definitely say yes, let's take it. Because the alternative, the present status quo is even worse. Zanu PF remains in power and claims that they won free, fair, and credible election. Of course, they will not implement any meaningful reform. One can only hope that forcing Zanu PF to accept that the August elections were not free, fair, and credible will also force the regime to accept some token reforms between now and June. The only problem with it is that it's one of those situations where you carry out these superficial reforms and the nation is stuck with those superficial reforms. I don't know. I think Zimbabwe, we are in serious trouble. That's the one thing I can say for certain. It's a pity that we failed to make the most of the 2008 to 2018 GNU, because that was our golden opportunity to implement the reforms. That was our get out of jail card. And we failed to play it. It is disappointing how some people keep on complaining that, well, the GNU, it was the fact that MDC failed to implement reforms was not their fault. Zanu PF was to blame. It is a tyrannical regime, and they go on to list the problems that Zanu PF, challenges that Zanu PF present. Those are true. But when you have been given a get out of jail card, you do not want to explain or to dwell on the thickness of the walls and how high they are, and the razor barbed wire fence at the top, the landmines in the surrounding areas, etc., etc. You're not talking of escaping from jail. You're talking of walking out of the jail. People want to know why you failed to walk out. And this is where most people are failing to understand the problem here. Whether we like it or not, Zanu PF is not going to reform itself out of government. And therefore, then, what we should be looking at is, for the last 23 years, we expected MDC to implement the reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And so the focus should be, why has the opposition failed to implement the reforms? Why has the opposition failed to play the get out of jail card? And to keep on giving them more and more chances and our blind loyalty is not going to solve this problem. CCC should not have participated in these elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed and that by participating, they're giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And yet many people participated because they believed Chamisa's claim that he had plugged or the vote rigging loopholes. Well, all the election observers confirmed that those elections were flawed and illegal. So what loopholes did Chamisa plug? He was hell-bent on participating in these elections out of greed. And he used the lie that he had plugged the loopholes, all the other lies, to justify why he was participating and why he wanted the public to participate. I think it is important that the people of Zimbabwe understand that. Because only when you have understood why the last GNU failed can you meaningfully expect that the next GNU will not be a repeat of the 2008 to 2013 GNU. I seriously hope that the GNU, that SADC is sincere in their resolve to deny Zanu PF political legitimacy. And to demand that there is some form of government of national unity, because to let Zanu PF go scot-free and pretend that the August elections were free, fair, and credible is an outrage. The elections were not free, fair, and credible. Triple C should not have participated in it. And SADC, strong election observers, having noted that the elections were flawed, SADC, as a regional body, must stand up and be counted. They cannot endorse Zanu PF's legitimacy. As to what happens next, I don't know. But I believe that we will have a better platform to fight for reforms and better governance if SADC at least stand up and refuse to sweep the SADC report under the carpet. That's my view. Let's hope that this is not just another rumor that SADC is piling pressure on Zanu PF to form a GNU, that this will come true. I seriously and sincerely hope so. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good night.